All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. As far as our prayer list things, Gail's foot turned out about as well as it could. No surgery, no cast, no. All she has to do is stay in the walking cast, use the knee scooter as much as she can. She can take a few steps, so that part couldn't have turned out any better for the circumstances. And then Clara, they did clean that out, sewed it all back together. She's doing therapy again and doing well down back. She's back at the rehabilitation center down at Clinton. So, and that's good. So I think that's, is there anything else we need to add tonight? Nope. All right. Well, let's go ahead and pray. Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to be here in this place and just the freedoms that allow us to be here. And we do pray for our nation and its leaders, Lord, that we will continue to be strong and free and able to practice the freedoms that we have, including having your word, gathering in your house, professing our faith, and all those things. And Lord, just help us not to take those for granted. Be with us tonight as we go through your word and help us to understand the truths that are there, that we might understand you better and serve you more. And all this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. All righty. So we are in Exodus 4. We ended up with 26 last week, so we're going to start with 27. The Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the desert to meet Moses." So he met Moses at the mountain of God and kissed him. Then Moses told Aaron everything the Lord had sent him to say, and also about all the miraculous signs he had commanded him to perform. Moses and Aaron brought together all the elders of the Israelites, and Aaron told them everything the Lord had said to Moses. He also performed the signs before the people, and they believed. And when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshiped. So, you know, we'd read before with Moses having this conversation with God, you know, from the burning bush and all that is, you know, who am I that I should go? Who are you that sending me? And why would they listen to me anyway? I don't speak very well. And then finally he just said, Lord, I can't send somebody else. And God finally, you know, God kept answering him. And even with, why do you want me? He said, just go. And he finally told him, said, well, Aaron is already coming to meet you. He can be your mouthpiece. I will tell you, you tell Aaron, and he will speak. So God had put it on Aaron to go meet Moses. We talked about last time that we don't know how Aaron left, or you know under what circumstances he left. If he was able just to leave freely, if he had to escape, or what happened. But he did get away. Now, how do you think Aaron knew that Moses was his brother if Moses was raised in the palace?
He probably knew from the start because their mothers would be the same.
Yeah, Aaron was the older of the two. And actually Miriam was the oldest. But of the two boys, Aaron was the older of the two. And we don't know if he was 2 years older, 10 years older, whatever. But Moses was there for 3 years, or give or take. That's about the weaning age back then. And so Aaron could have been 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, so he would have known about it. But do you think that just because Moses went to live in the palace, that his mom quit talking about him, or didn't say, you know, he goes by on a chariot or something, that's my boy, you know, that's my boy, or to tell the rest of the family, he belongs to us, he's one of us, and all that. So I think just from things like that Aaron would have known that Moses was his brother. And now whether Moses knew Aaron was his brother, I don't know. He seems to know who Aaron was because God tells him, said, go meet Aaron. He's coming here to see you. So he met Moses where?
At the mountain.
Mountain of God. And what happened on the mountain of God?
Kissed him.
That's the burning bush place right now. So it's at that same spot. Now, that's not where Moses had been. Moses had been with Jethro and had gone from the mountain of God to talk to Jethro. He's on the route It's if we go back to verse 24, it even says at a lodging place along the way. So I don't know for sure where Jethro was living at this time, but Moses had been traveling already just to get to the mountain of God. So they greet each other, they kiss each other, and then Moses tells everything that God had told him to say. Not just to say to Aaron. What he's doing is telling Aaron everything that they are to say when they get back to Egypt, and kind of filling Aaron in on things. And so he and about everything that God had told him. So now and he also did about the miraculous signs he commanded him to perform. And what were the signs? Staff into a snake. What was the second one? Hand, right, John? The hand goes in and comes out with flaky white, goes back in and comes out. And what's the last one?
Water to blood.
Turns water into the blood, the Nile River. A bucket or container of water from the Nile River into blood. So now, between 28 and 29, it's another one of those. This is another one of those places we have a tendency to read them, and we read on, and we have in 28 that it kind of ends up that Moses told Aaron everything the Lord had sent to him to say, and also about all the miraculous signs he had commanded him to perform. And then 29 is Moses and Aaron brought together all the elders of the Israelites. So, what do we need to take note of between those two?
Didn't Moses at one point speaking to God say that, will they believe me?
Yeah, well, that's part of it, and that's going to be what we're going to get into is about whether they believe him. Yep. But between those two, between 27 and 28, they traveled almost 1,000 miles. They traveled from southeastern, today what is Saudi Arabia, all the way back to Egypt. So we read about them meeting at the mountain of God, kissing each other, having their conversation, and then the journey then Aaron's turning around and going right back the way he just came, and it's a long journey, and it's through the desert along the way. And so it looks like Aaron was by himself. Moses had his wife and 2 sons with him, as we read about just before this passage. So now they're in Egypt, and most likely up in the Nile Delta area. So they bring together all the elders. And what did we say that? Remember what I told you that word literally means in Hebrew? He qualifies.
Do what now?
What elders actually means. The white bearded ones. So usually you got to have a little age to be white bearded, and but these are the heads of the clans. There were the tribes, the clans, the families, and each one of them had a head, and so that's who they're bringing together, and all of them. So it's not just one or two. This is for everybody. So then Aaron tells them everything the Lord said to Moses. That's what the plan was. First it's supposed to be Moses, then he sends Aaron, and I'm sure. To me, this is just in my mind and my thinking that whole time that they were traveling from southeastern Saudi Arabia all the way up to the Nile Delta, they're talking about all these things and what's going to happen and how it's going to be presented. Probably wondered about how it's going to be accepted and all those things, and how they're going to say it, what they're going to do. Do we do the signs first? Do we do the signs last? Do we talk to them? How do we go about all that? So they performed the signs before the people. First they tell them everything, then they perform the signs, and then what happened? They believed. Moses said, how do I know they're going to believe me? And that's when God said, throw your stick down, put your hand in, and all those things. And so they do. And when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them, had seen their misery, they bowed down to worship him. And so we see that, they believed, they accepted, they thought Moses is here to take us home, how great this is, and they praised God for it. So chapter 5. Afterwards, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a festival to me in the desert." Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Then they said, "The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us take a 3-day journey into the desert to offer sacrifices to the Lord our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword." But the king of Egypt said, "Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work." Then Pharaoh said, "Look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you are stopping them from working." The same day, Pharaoh gave this order to the slave drivers and foremen in charge of the people: "You are no longer to supply the people with straw for making bricks. Let them go and gather their own straw, but require them to make the same number of bricks as before. Don't reduce the quota. They are lazy. That is why they're crying out, 'Let us go and sacrifice to our God.' Make the work harder for the men so that they keep working and pay no attention to the lies." So we don't know how long it was from the time that Moses and Aaron met with the elders and when they met with Pharaoh. But what were the elders supposed to do after they saw and believed and all of that? They were supposed to go with them. That was in the last chapter. It was go and present this, and then God says, "Moses, you and Aaron and the elders go to Pharaoh." Did they go? Nope. Why do you think they didn't go? Probably afraid, yeah. It's easy to bow down and worship and everything when you're among your own people, your own kind and all that. But when you got to go confront basically the evil king, the one that's made you slaves and all that, that's not as easy a thing to do. And so we don't see them. Now there's an old Jewish legend that they all started off with him when they left to go, and then one by one or two by two they all dropped off along the way, so that by the time they got to the palace it was only Moses and Aaron. There's really nothing in the Bible to support that. That's just something's been, like I said, it's a Jewish legend about all of the. So they go into Pharaoh, and what'd they say?
That says the word of God of Israel. Let
Yep.
the people go and that they can hold the festival or feast.
So is that what they were supposed to say? Nope. They were. God told them first. He said, "Go and request." They were even supposed to say, "Please." And it wasn't the God of the Israelites. The God of Israel. It was the God of the Hebrews. And why does that make a difference? The only difference it makes is Pharaoh never refers to them as Israelites. Pharaoh refers to them as Hebrews. So God wanted to be specific. It is the God. It's not some other strange God. It's the God of these people. It's not a God that they had when they were gone. It's a God that they have here. And then they were supposed to say, "Let my people go," so that they can go. How many days into the desert?
3.
3. 2 or 3 days to festival and 3 days back. So, or for their sacrifices. So Moses or Aaron, it actually would have been Aaron speaking here. He kind of flubs up the first time around. He doesn't call God by the proper way he was supposed to address him, and it's confrontational. Let my people go. There's no please to it, and that is that's a challenge to authority, so that they may hold a festival to me in the desert, not to worship or anything. It's a festival. Our people, so they want to go party, right? We want to go, have a big family reunion or whatever it is. And what's Pharaoh's answer? Yeah. First off, and you notice now, one of the things you got to notice in all this is the way that the word Lord is written, right? It's not just a capital, uppercase, whatever the heck they call it now, L to begin with, and then regular letters after that. They're also uppercase letters written, or capital letters, we would say, written in a smaller font. And because that's different, that is the title of God. This is his name, and that's what he told when he told Moses. You know, I am. Moses said, "What's your name?" "I am." But he said, "Refer to me as the Lord, the Yahweh," which where we get the term Adonai as well. And the English word of Jehovah, which we talked about that. So Pharaoh said, "I don't know this God." And why was that significant?
Pharaoh thought he was God.
Because Pharaoh thought he was God. I'm a God. I know the gods. And it's kind of like, you remember, who was it that said to Dan Quayle, you know, I know, Senator, I know Jack Kennedy and you are not Jack Kennedy. You know, remember that kind of, that's basically what Pharaoh is saying here. Benson, yeah. That's Pharaoh saying, I know the gods, I don't know this one. And who is the Lord, that I should obey him? He's not one of our gods. He's not the chief god. That chief god is On, the sun god. And who is this? You know, you're telling me that there's a God? And so from this point on, one of the things you got to understand through all of this is the whole issue of the plagues, of the confrontation with Pharaoh from this time on until they cross the Red Sea, get safely to the other side. Who is God? Who is not God? So we have Pharaoh here saying, I don't know this God. How do I know? He basically saying, how do I even know him? Why should I obey him? Or better put, why should I obey him? I'm a God. I don't take orders from anybody. And especially this God that I don't know. And I don't know him, and I will not let Israel go. Now here's the one time that Pharaoh does refer to that, because that's the way that Moses put it. So now, when you get to verse 3, they realize this isn't going the way we planned.
They were told that.
Huh? No, but they didn't say it the way they were supposed to. Verse 3 is the way that they were supposed to say it. Now, and this is exactly what God told them. The God of the Hebrews has met with us. Now let us, that's a request. And actually in the Hebrew, it was supposed to say, please. When God told Moses what to say, it was to say to him, please let my people go. The first one is a request before it becomes confrontational. So now let us take a 3-day journey into the desert, offer sacrifices to our God, or he may strike us with plagues or with the sword. So now they did do it word for word. And that's what happens a lot of times. You know, we're told to go do something and we do it, it doesn't work, and we think, oh, you know, I didn't do that right. I didn't say that the way I was supposed to, and all those sort of things. Now, did it change anything?
No.
Nope. King of Egypt said, Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? You know, they're working. Why are you taking them away from the work that they have to do? Because that's the whole point. There's going to be a week or so that they're going to be gone. Because it doesn't say how long the sacrificing is going to take, but if it's 3 days out, it's 3 days back, that's 6 days already. So you're probably talking 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that the workforce is going to be gone. And so what's interesting, what does he say to Moses and Aaron?
Where are you taking the people?
Yeah, but I mean after that,
They're numerous.
get back to your work. As far as he's concerned, they're Hebrews, they're supposed to be working too. And, you know, that they're just a couple representatives, but, you know, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work. And so Pharaoh, as far as he's concerned, they're all they're all servants, they're all slaves. He's not even aware at this point in time that Moses and Aaron aren't part of the slave. Aaron probably was till he left to go to be with Moses. So he says, there's way too many people for me to let them go, and now you want to stop them from working? Are you serious? So and it kind of comes back also to what was the initial fear of the Egyptians, that they put them into bondage and slavery. Yeah, if somebody comes to invade them, that they're going to come through that area where they live, they're going to join with them, and then the Egyptians don't have a chance. And we're going to see as we read through here that at this point in time, they have about 650,000 men of fighting age. Now that's a lot. It makes you, and now Moses is wanting to take them further into that area, 3 days journey outside the country, to where if an army is coming or something, they can join with them, gives them a chance to get armored up, all those kind of things. So, the people of the land are now numerous, and you're stopping them from working. So there's two issues. One of them is that the work is not continuing, and the other one is you're wanting to take them out in a place that is not going to be good for Egypt. So what's Pharaoh's response? His immediate response, other than what he says to them?
Doesn't give them straw to make bricks.
Start making this. Yep. He gives an order. Don't give them any straw anymore. Make them go get their own straw. And who's he give that order to?
Slave drivers.
Yep, the slave drivers and the foreman. We're going to see that there's two levels. The furnace or the air conditioner finally kicked off. There's two levels of people here. The foremen are Hebrews. The slave drivers are the Egyptians, and they're the ones that are ruthless. So he gives them both. The orders. Don't give them any more straw. Make them go get straw and gather their own. But what about their quota?
Keep it up.
Keep it up. Don't reduce the quota at all. And they're lazy. That is why they're crying out, let us go and sacrifice to our God. Make them work harder for the men so that they keep working and pay no attention to lies. So what's he trying to do here? Or what's his point? He's got these two things.
So they don't listen to.
Yeah, he doesn't want to. He's trying to. Who just left? Moses and Aaron. So as soon as they're gone, he puts out the order. You think the people aren't going to know? As soon as Moses and Aaron go and talk to Pharaoh, things get harder for us. So that's one. He's trying to turn the people against Moses and Aaron. The second one is that if they got time to think about going out somewhere, they're not working hard enough. And his whole point is to keep them so tired at the end of the day that they don't have thoughts of rebellion or getting away, because Pharaoh knows.
That's what my wife does to me.
Yeah. Marty said that's what Mary Jane does to him. So, Pharaoh, the other thing is Pharaoh does know that even if they don't join with another army, they get 3 days out into the desert, they may be gone for good. So he says they're lazy. If they're wanting to just go and party or to go sacrifice their gods, take time off and lounge around or whatever, they're lazy. So he said that's why they want to go do the sacrifice. And this way they're not going to pay any attention to the lies. Now, is it lies? No, he wants them to think that they're lies. And and the big thing is Moses is a threat. He could have Moses executed if he wanted to, but there may be another Moses coming up. The biggest thing he can do is to discredit him and all that, and then just let him go along, and then it'll be worse than anything else, because then he hasn't turned him into a martyr or anything like that. So, verse 10. Then the slave drivers and the foreman went out and said to the people, this is what Pharaoh says. I will not give you any more straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it. but your work will not be reduced at all. So the people scattered all over Egypt to gather stubble for use for straw. The slave drivers kept pressuring them, saying, complete the work required of you for each day, just as when you had straw. The Israelite foremen appointed by Pharaoh's slave drivers were beaten and were asked, why didn't you meet your quota of bricks as yesterday or today as before? So this doesn't even, it looks, because of this last statement, why didn't you meet your quota yesterday or today? This doesn't go very long to where they're already putting the pressure on them. And, over there, they do know from the bricks that you can, the people that go over and study those things, found that the bricks are made with straw in there. It's a binder. It keeps them from falling apart so much and all that. But, when you're making bricks to that extent, and we talked about how many men were in the army, or could be in an army, how many men are of fighting age. That's the same amount of people that would be in the workforce. That's the same amount of slaves. 650,000 people. Now, whether it was the men and the women, it really doesn't say. But even if it was just the men, so you have a town, and you have a town could be the size of Rockville, it could be the size of Indianapolis, and they're making bricks, and now they've got to go gather straw. How far are they going to have to go for that many people to be able to make bricks? It's going to be a haul. That's what's it say that they did?
We spread out.
They went all over Egypt looking for straw, because chances are it had already been gathered up around them, and they're either gathering what? Stubble. It's not just the shafts of the straw. They're gathering stubble, even trying to find anything to make the bricks and be able to do it. And now they're not making them. And so what was the repercussions of that? They beat the foreman. How would you like to have that job? So they beat the foreman because it was their responsibility to make sure the other people were doing what they were needed to do. And there are the Egyptians weren't the only one to utilize that kind of a thing. Germany did it during Hitler with the Jews that were in prison camps. Some of the Japanese did it. Others did it, to where you take and one of the things that it says somewhere, I don't know if we missed it already, but it says that the foremen were appointed by Pharaoh. So the foremen weren't people that were selected by their fellow Hebrews because of how good they were. They were selected by the oppressors, and they do that in prison camps, other places, and then they'll put one of their own people over those, but it has somebody else. And there's a few views of that. One of them is that if it's the right person that you pick, they may have more influence than somebody else, or if it's somebody that doesn't care, they're going to be just as much of a driver, and they're going to take care of a lot of the discipline and things that you don't have to. But in order to get them to doing the things they need to do, they get beaten first. So verse 15. Then the Israelite foreman went and appealed to Pharaoh. Why have you treated your servants this way? Your servants are given no straw, yet we're told, make bricks. Your servants are being beaten, but the fault is with your own people. Pharaoh said, lazy. That's what you are, lazy. This is why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice to the Lord. Now get to work. You will not be given any straw, yet you must produce your full quota of bricks. The Israelite foremen realized they were in trouble when they were told, you're not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day. When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, may the Lord look upon you and judge you. You have made us a stench to Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. So,
They didn't dare quit.
huh?
They didn't dare quit.
Oh no, they couldn't quit. They'd die.
Yeah.
And so they go. We started off by saying that the foreman and the slave driver said, this is back up in verse 10. This is what Pharaoh says. So it came directly from. They didn't want to, just like a lot of other people, they don't want to say, no, I'm telling you this. He told me to tell you this. Just kind of like the little kid that comes in and says, Mom says you got to come in, but Dad says, and those kind of things. which gives them their authority. So these foremen go straight to Pharaoh after they've been beaten, and they said, why are you treating us this way? You know, and so they've been meeting their quotas, they've been doing all that, and you don't give us any straw, yet you tell us to make bricks. We can't make bricks without straw. How are we supposed to get straw? And we're getting beaten, but the problem's with your own people. It's your people that are not giving us the straw, and so they're trying to push it back because Pharaoh gave the order. They're trying to push the fault back on Pharaoh, or at least not towards him so much. They did in the beginning, and they end up saying it's your people. In other words, you can do something about it. And what's Pharaoh say?
Lazy.
Yeah, lazy is what you are, lazy. And that's why you keep saying what?
Let us go and sacrifice to the Lord.
Yeah, all right. So Pharaoh says, that's why you keep saying, let us go and sacrifice the Lord. Have they been saying that? No. Who's been saying it? Moses and Aaron. And what Pharaoh's doing here is dropping it back on them. You're hollering at the wrong person. You know, they know it was Moses and Aaron. So he's basically saying, they're your representatives that are coming in here. That's the same as you speaking. You're the ones sent them in here. You're the ones that want to do this. That's why you keep saying, you all, not specifically just them, why you Hebrew people keep saying, let us go and sacrifice the Lord. Now, have they been keeping saying? No, they only said it once. You know, and these guys didn't say anything about it. They're coming in with questions. Why are we going through all this stuff? Why are you doing this to us? And we didn't say that. And Pharaoh doesn't give them a chance to answer. You know, he says, now get to work. You're lazy. That's why you want to get off work. Get back to work and don't miss your quota. So, what's their realization? I think it's kind of a funny statement here. The Israelite, this is verse 19, the Israelite foreman realized they were in trouble. They got a problem when they were told you're not to reduce the number of bricks required of you for each day. We gotta, you know, that's one of, you know, what are we going to do? That is not going away. And so they leave, and what happens? Who was waiting for them as they came out from meeting them?
Moses and Aaron.
Moses and Aaron. So why do you think they were waiting for them?
You already said.
Yeah, they're just interested in what Pharaoh had to say as anybody else. What did he say to you guys? And now, what did they tell him?
They tell them, you know, judges.
Yeah, God needs to punish you for this. This is your fault, and you know, and judge you. It's you did it. You did this to us, and you have made us a stench to Pharaoh and his officials. And what? You put a sword in his hand to kill us. Now, you know what is the retaliation for not making the bricks?
Yes.
Yeah, death, execution, beating. You know, they beat him. And they said that's all. It's all your fault. And so I hope God makes you pay for what you've done to us. That's a pretty serious thing. Now you got to stop and think. Here's Moses and Aaron thinking that they're doing something good, and the people are saying, you really have caused us problems. Do you realize what you're doing to us? And may God make you pay for what you're doing. You know, when somebody says that to you, and it's a person of faith. That's a pretty, it doesn't get much more serious than that. So, chapter 20, or verse 22. Moses returned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you brought trouble upon this people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble upon this people, and you have not rescued your people at all. So what's going on here?
I'll show you how low you can go before I can get you out of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what God is saying, but he's upset with God. You know, Lord, I'm here, I'm doing what you asked me to do. I've come here to rescue your people. And all it's done is cause them trouble. You know, why have you brought trouble on these people? I thought I was coming to do good. And it's causing, and look at the trouble. And is this why you sent me? Moses having his doubts. He never questions about who God is or what God is. But what is the situation? And sometimes things get worse before they get better. You know, and it's one of those things, Moses is thinking he's going to go down and tell Pharaoh, please let my people go. The God of the Hebrews says, please let my people go. And off they're going to go. It doesn't work that way. And so he goes down. He does. You know, I would say Moses was feeling pretty good after he and Aaron had went and met with the elders. You know, and he throws his stick down, turns into a snake, puts his hand in and out twice, and goes leprous and then not leprous. Add the water, and they're all bowing down. Everybody's worshiping together. And he's probably, yeah, buddy, I got this under control, coming in full of confidence to speak to Pharaoh. And now things don't go the way he thought they were going to go. They're told to get back to your work. The other people their lives are made even more miserable. And now he's asking, is this why you sent me? I don't understand. Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to do what? Speak in your name. I went to Pharaoh to represent you. Trouble. He has brought trouble on his people. I'm trying to follow what you told me to do, and it doesn't look like it's working. And what's he say to him at the end? You haven't even rescued him. The whole point that Moses is going back is to what? Rescue the people, take them to the promised land. And he said, things have got worse. And you have not rescued your people at all, Lord. Do you understand? Not even at all. It's not even a little bit of a break. The needle's going the wrong direction. And one of the things that I think it shows as much as anything is, number one, it shows Moses was a real person. Because we go through things like that. And there's a lot of people that think that they're on a divine mission or whatever. Some are, and things don't go the way that they thought they were going to go. Or we have a situation, we pray about it, we think we've got an answer, but then all of a sudden, the answer is not seeming like what we expected or what we felt like was about to happen. And the first thing we do is we begin to doubt. Moses never doubts God, but he's a little angry with God here. This is not just an inquisitive thing. There's a lot of emotion in this. And Lord, look at what's going on here. Look at how bad things are getting. What are you doing? And that's what he's asking. What are you doing? You sent me down here to speak in your name. I did that, and it got worse. And you're supposed to rescue your people. You haven't done anything, and it's getting worse. And doesn't that seem like real people and real things that we go through? The other thing that it tells us, he says this to God, and one of the things that God doesn't do is dispute any of it. So chapter 6. Then the Lord said to Moses, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand he will let them go. Because of my mighty hand he will drive them out of his country. So God doesn't say Moses. He doesn't say, Moses, you don't understand. You're not right. God basically, there's an old adage, even in debates, speeches, a lot of those kind of things, that when somebody makes an accusation, that there's sometimes if it's so far out, you hear people say, I'm not going to dignify that with an answer. That's they just did. They just gave an answer. But there's also a thing that when an accusation is made and it's true, you don't have to reiterate it. you just move on. And that's what God does. God doesn't dispute what Moses is saying at all. So there's a couple things about it. Number one is that God is saying, I know, I see it, all that. But the other thing that it speaks more to us about, as much as anything, is it's okay to have those kind of conversations with God. To say, Lord, we thought we were doing the right thing, and now look at what's happened. Is this what it's all about? Is this the way it's supposed to happen? I don't see your plan in this, and things are getting worse. They're not getting better. And rather than where some people would just throw their hands up and say, well, that didn't work. I went and talked to Pharaoh, and he threw me out, told me to get back to work, and things got rough on everybody else. Maybe I ought to go back to see what Jethro's up to, and that kind of thing. But Moses doesn't. He goes to God and has this discussion with God, and then God says, what's his answer? Now you're going to see what's going to happen. God is basically saying, Moses, there had to be the setup. Why did there have to be a setup? Do what?
To show the other people that it was actually him.
Well, so what would have happened if Moses and Aaron went and they said to Pharaoh, the God of Hebrews says, please let my people go into the wilderness and to do the sacrifices and all that. Pharaoh said, okay, go. Then who would have had the final authority? Who would have been the one with all the power? It would have been Pharaoh. And so you have to, God has now set it up, and just like I said at the beginning of the chapter, the whole setup is now, who is God? God has got to show who is God. Is Pharaoh that is God? Or is it the Lord that is God? So now you have this thing to set up. And as we're also going to see is when we get into the plagues and all that, it's not just is it Pharaoh that's a god. What about Pharaoh's gods? The god of the sun, the god of the frogs, the god of the river, all these different gods. God, the Lord takes on each one of them, is what a lot of these plagues are about. And so God has set it up, and he says, all right, now it's about that time. And it's almost, you can almost make a correlation. It's like when the Allied forces in World War II got driven back to the beach, and there was the whole thing with Dunkirk, where they had to take all the boats and all the things to go get them. They thought they were fighting a righteous war, and they ended up having to even little fishing boats and everything else to get the English people and all the Allies and some of the French and they're off of the beach and back over to England. And everybody thought, well, it's over, until D-Day came, and then they went back in, and the whole thing restarted. And so it's kind of that. Now they look like they've lost. It looks like Pharaoh's the one in control. And now it's time for God to act. And he says, now you will see what I will do to Pharaoh. Because of my mighty hand, see the difference? Not Pharaoh's mighty hand. Because of my mighty hand, what's he going to do?
Pharaoh's going to let him go.
He's going, and
Drive them out of
yeah. So, two things that God is saying here. Number one, he doesn't want to let him go. He thinks he's the one in power because I'm mightier than he is. He's not only just going to let them go. That's the first one. It's going to show that I'm mightier than him. What else is he going to do? He's going to drive them out of the land. It's not that he's just going to let them go. It's going to be, get out of here. And that's the way, we'll see, that's the way it ends up, that they went out. And what's the other thing that we had in the chapter before that's going to happen? They're going to plunder them without stealing from them. And
Pay them off.
huh?
They're going to pay them off.
They're going to pay them all. So verse 2 of chapter 6, God also said to Moses, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but my name, the Lord, I did not make myself, by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, where they lived as aliens. Moreover, I have heard the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and now I have remembered my covenant. One thing I forgot to mention about verse 1 is that's how the Passover starts. When you have a Passover meal, that's one of the main things. And now I will show you what I will do with my mighty hand. And then, because it recounts all the plagues and all those things as he gets up there. But God says, I am the Lord. Because remember, that's what he said he's going to be known from this time on. I am the Lord, the Yahweh, Jehovah, Adonai, whatever you want. And so he says, but things are different now. And what's different? You had the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And how did they know God? God Almighty, El Shaddai. El Shaddai. And God Almighty. And he said, I didn't make myself known to them. He made himself known to them, but not in the same way. And to know somebody's name is to know their essence and all that. So God didn't have to deliver them in this way. Now, there was a whole thing with Sodom and Gomorrah and Lot and all that, but that didn't measure up to this. He is the Lord and the one, and that's the whole point of it here. So he established the covenant with them to give them the land, right? Told Abraham, look north, south, east, west. As far as you can see, it's going to belong to your descendants. It's not going to belong to you. It's going to come along later. Same thing with Isaac, same thing with Jacob. And then Jacob brought the family down to rejoin with Joseph in Egypt is how they got there. So now he's heard the crying and the groaning of the Israelites, whom the Egyptians are enslaving, and I have remembered my covenant. Did it mean he forgot? No, every time you read that in the Bible, it means time to act. It is the time to act on my covenant. So, verse 6, therefore, say to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. I will free you from being slaves to them, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my own people. I will be your God. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God, who brought you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians, and I will bring you to the land I swore with an uplifted hand to give to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. I will give it to you as a possession. I am the Lord. Now, how does this whole paragraph start and end? I am the Lord. And so God is establishing, this is not just somebody else talking to you. This is not Pharaoh talking to you. This is not Moses talking to you. I'm the Lord. And that's what gives me the authority to say these things or to establish these things, the power to do these things, the promise that I'm making this. So, did you count how many wills are in there? I will bring you out from under the yoke of the Egyptians. 1, I will free you from being slaves to them. 2, I will redeem you with an outstretched arm. 3, and with mighty acts. I will take you as my own people. 4, I will be your God. 5, then you will know that I am the Lord your God who brought you out from under the yoke of, and I will bring you to the land. 6, and I will give it to you as a possession. 7 I wills, and all of the fulfillment. And so what God say, why he has to do this?
So we can establish.
But how was it established?
By his covenant?
Well, how was the covenant established? Verse 8.
That he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Swore how?
Uplifted hand.
Did you ever wonder where I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth comes from? You swear an oath with an uplifted hand. And that's what God did. It said, I will bring you to the land I swore with an uplifted hand to give to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. And so God is saying, I'm the Lord. If I did this, who's gonna break it? And So, and to go through these, it's basically an order of events or an agenda. First, I got to bring you out of the yoke of the Egyptians. Then I'm going to free you from being slaves. And then I'm going to redeem you with an outstretched arm and mighty acts of judgment. And what was the redemption? What's it going to be? The Passover lamb and the death of the firstborns. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. 10 commandments. The 10 commandments are, and they're not commandments. They are a contract between the people and God. God says, if you're going to be my people and I'm going to be your God, this is what you got to do. These are the things you got to follow. Do you agree to do that? That's where those things came from. And that God will be their God. Because then you'll know that I'm the Lord your God who brought you out from under it. And then what's next? I'll bring you to the land, and then I'll give it to you as a possession. Because you can come to it, but it's not theirs yet. They cross the river, the Jordan River, into the land, but it's not theirs. They don't possess it. So this is the order of events of the things that's going to happen. God is telling them ahead of time, this is what's going to happen. Because which is better, to say, I knew that was going to happen, and see what we did, all these different things, and just the way I planned it, right? Or to say, here's what's going to occur. This is going to be the order of them. I'm in charge of all of them, so that when they're done, you know who it was. It's a process that the Bible follows over and over and over, and it's something that during Advent we talk about those things. All the fulfillments, that even all the prophecies about Jesus, you almost check them off. Born in Bethlehem, the virgin birth, all the other things that goes along with that, and you can check them off because God said ahead of time, this is how it's going to happen. Because if God didn't say it ahead of time and they happened, how do you know that it was really God? Or was it just circumstances? Or you were that good of fighters, or whatever it happened to be? This proves God's in charge, and so He is telling them. And the first 4 of these are during Passover. There are 4 cups of wine that are a part of it. 2 before the meal, 2 after the meal, and these are the ones that come from that. And so the cup of freedom, and then the people, then the one with Christ is the one of redemption, and or they called it salvation. That's what they call it today, and that's the one that Jesus took and shared with Passover, the one of redemption, the cup of redemption, or the cup of Passover, or the cup of salvation. So God is saying, here it is. This is how it's going to happen. These are the things that's going to occur, and I've sworn these things. This is it. So Moses, verse 9, Moses reported this to the Israelites, but they didn't listen to him because of their discouragement and cruel bondage. Then the Lord said to Moses, go tell Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of the country. But Moses said to the Lord, if the Israelites will not listen to me, why would Pharaoh listen, since I speak with faltering lips? So Moses goes back to the Israelites. I got good news for you. God's going to do all these things. He's going to rescue you. He's going to take you out of here. He's going to get you to the promised land. He's going to give it to you and all that. And they said, get lost. And they didn't listen to him because of why? Discouragement and cruel bondage. So was Pharaoh's plan working?
Yep.
Absolutely. He has turned them against Moses and Aaron. So now, put yourself in Moses, and especially Moses' part, because Aaron's kind of just following Moses. So you got Pharaoh and all his bunch. They don't like you. You got the Hebrews. They don't like you. And God is saying, I am with you. Go do these. That's what he told him at the burning bush. And Moses said, what? Do you realize who I'm going to go see? And God said, go, I am with you. And so, Moses, he's there. He's already told God, I don't think this is going to work. God is giving him these instructions, all the things he's going to do. Moses goes back and tells the Hebrews. They're not concerned about it. They're not listening because they're too discouraged over it. Why do we want to listen to this guy? He's just going to get us in more trouble. And so what does God say? Go to Pharaoh again. You know, so Moses has got to go back to see Pharaoh. And do what? It changes. First God said, say please. Please let my people go. And now he says, go tell him, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the people go out of this country. So now it has turned into a huh?
Sounds like Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Let people go.
Oh, sorry, I had a funny story for you, but let me finish this and I'll tell you. So Pharaoh, now he says, let them go out of the country. There's no request anymore. And but Moses says, what? If the people aren't going to listen to me, what makes you think Pharaoh's going to listen to me? And I speak with faltering lips. You know, that's what, and it wasn't that he had the stutter, that he had a speaking impediment. He's just saying, I'm not quick-witted enough to speak. And so Pharaoh's not going to listen to me because I tell him something, Pharaoh comes back, I'm just going to be standing there looking at him, trying to figure out what am I going to say, and that kind of thing. So we'll end there. And what I was going to tell you, there's an old story about an evangelist that came to town, and the little church is having a revival, and the church is packed, and the evangelist is up there, and he's been preaching for about an hour, and the old minister from the church is sitting in one of the chairs right back there like they used to. And he's going on about, you know, and God said to Pharaoh this, and finally, and he says, and you know what God's answer was? And the old boy in the back said, let my people go. And he got a round of applause from the crowd. So, all right, we'll see you next week. Right here, we'll pick up with verse 13, and we'll talk a little bit about the family record, and we'll really get into the meat of it after that. So go out, be blessed, and be a blessing to others. Share the word and love of God, and we'll see you either Sunday morning, Sunday evening, again back here, or on Wednesday night. So catch you then.